not every lawyer is an expert in property law. For those who are willing to invest in real estate, what are the things that as soon as they see it, as soon as they hear of it, they should even think more fervently about involving a property lawyer?
Whenever you see title, anything in front of it, and that has in processing or under processing,
Or in view,
I can confidently say that 90% of the cases, they haven't filed anything that has been processed.
Oh my goodness. So
they intend to process
it's a gimmick, right?
In this same Lagos, it's a one-of-a-kind incident. I've seen a deed of assignment that did not cite a survey plan and did not have a survey plan attached to it.
No way.
And the deed of assignment was registered by Lagos State government. Very large expanse of land.
Right.
There are several estates on that land.
Wow.
I've been involved in perfection of titles for some banks. This is a regulated company on the island.
Yes.
Central Metropolis.
Yes.
When I say regulated, they're talking about companies that are regulated by the CBN, regulated by
SEC.
Yeah. That was the kind of company that was trying to sell this property, where I took the original C of O, government Lagos State C of O, to allow us to perfect the title. And I got there and they said it was fake. Close to 13, 12 years since that happened now.
Okay.
That document has not been returned. This document I'm talking about passed through the bank's legal department and they did not see that it was fake.
You're talking about a bank now, not just like an individual.
Not an individual. I went to the office and this was a transaction worth about 450 million.
What you're saying in essence, right, is that it's not enough to, on face value, say it is because it is this company, so therefore I can proceed with it.
We call some people PEPs or politically exposed persons because they have the ability to influence decisions of government or government agencies to act in certain ways. If individual is selling land to you, be very careful. Maybe one of the red flags you should also watch out is now, a contract of sale does not mean that the property belongs to you.
Correct.
It means that, the buyer, the seller has agreed to sell and the buyer has agreed to purchase. And these are the conditions for the purchase. Assuming the seller sells to another person, issues the person a new deed of assignment, and then the person takes it and goes and registers it immediately. Who do you think owns the land?
The person registered it.
If you compute the percentage of the fees that you're going to pay as a Lausa to perfect your title, it comes to about 4 to 5%, which is probably lower than what you pay the agents.
Correct.
So why do you have a problem with that?
Welcome to Square Meter Stories, powered by the Detail Apartments. My name is Architect Akinde Olamidun, founder of the Detail Apartments, and you're welcome to today's episode. Square Meter Stories is a podcast birthed by Detail Apartments where ideas, topics, and trends about real estate and property investments are discussed and simplified for your understanding. Real estate remains a proven asset class in hedging inflation, beating inflation, and also securing your future. No other asset class performs better than real estate over the long term. Now, to be successful at real estate investing, you have to be capable of making the right decisions. And now the right decisions you can only make when you have the right information. Therefore, the objective of Square Meter Stories is demystifying the many mysteries, ambiguities, and complexities surrounding real estate and property investments. Now, by discussing with subject matter professionals and experts, we can demystify many things so that you can understand real estate better and the information can help you make the right decision. On today's episode, we're going to be featuring a guest talking about property contracts and the things that you can do to avoid stories that touch where you lose your hard-earned money. So we have Barrister Shogo Oyelami in the studio with us today, and is going to be dissecting topics around property contracts and the things you should look out for and why you should engage a property lawyer in your next real estate transaction. Now, I'll read a very brief profile about Barrister Shogo Oyelami. Shogo Oyelami is the lead counsel at Dianoia Pluris, a commercial law firm based in Lagos with expertise in real estate law, intellectual property, and regulatory compliance. He is currently the legal advisor to the Eleganza Group of Companies and the Family Office RAO Investment Property Company Limited of Chief Razaki Akoni Okoya, CON. He was previously the Chief Legal Officer at Paulton Morgan Holdings Limited, a foremost real estate holding company. Prior to joining Paulton Morgan Holdings for a brief period, he headed the in-house legal department of TY Holdings Limited, an investment company with interest in oil and gas, real estate, shipping, hospitality, agriculture, and financial services, founded and chaired by Lieutenant General Theophilus Yakubu Danjuma, GCON. And he also provided strategic support to the managing director. He has a bachelor's degree in law from the Olabisi Onabanjo University and was called to the Nigerian bar in 2007. Oluwasegun is an alumnus of Daystar Leadership Academy, Lagos Business School, and the Harvard Business School. He is currently studying an executive MBA at the Quantic School of Business and Technology, USA. It's so good to have you on the program.
I'm glad to be here.
So we'll go right into it. There are so many things that a lot of people who want to invest in properties do not know about the way contracts are structured. And a contract in a real estate transaction is almost everything there is to it. Because when you get into the wrong contract, regardless of how much you have invested, you stand the risk of losing everything. And indeed, there have been stories I have heard, and I want to discuss this very burning issue about how you can actually save money by first consulting with a property lawyer. However, there are people who feel like engaging a lawyer is just an unneeded luxury. And oftentimes when they get into the transaction and a problem surfaces, then they remember they have a lawyer. Why is this approach terribly wrong?
I think it's partly a function of ignorance and of the role that lawyers play in real estate transactions. So most people assume that the way you buy real estate is the same way you buy a car. All you need is for a mechanic to check it, and then you take the car, take the car and go.
All right.
And you could probably never tell, was the car stolen? Was it, did you get the proper documents? And they just think, oh, that's the same way you buy real estate. They assume that it's the same laws that apply in different locations for different types of real estate, but that's not the case. Lawyers are trained for at least 5 years, 6 years, to understand the intricacies of locations, the laws that apply in different locations for different types of real estate. And so to assume that, oh, all I have to do is just go to a business center, they print out a template of a contract for me.
Or like a deed, like
like a deed, as they say.
I have a deed.
And then I'll put my name there, I'll put the other party's name there, I'll just put the amount, and then I'm fine. No, it doesn't work that way. Clients, a lot of people that do that end up putting themselves in a lot of trouble. For instance, they buy property, they keep the documents in their cabinet for years, they pass on, and then children say, oh, my father had this property there. And then they pull out the documents and you find out that it was just it was only as good as a receipt of payment. Wow. Totally useless. And then they try to regularize, they go to the family that sold them. Oh, the family is the person that sold is dead. His son is now the one in charge. His son doesn't know you. And then it layers upon layers of problems here and there. And that's why it's extremely important that you consult a lawyer. The assumption also is that lawyers are expensive, unnecessarily expensive. You wouldn't say that an architect is unnecessarily expensive when he's building a house that won't collapse on your head. In the same way, you wouldn't say a lawyer is expensive if you value the fact that when they conduct, first of all, the due diligence to be sure that you are buying property that they're selling to you. You're not buying a fake property, you're not buying fake documents, you're not buying from the wrong person. And then the contracts are prepared. Protect your interests so that years down the line, one Omonile won't come and tell you that, oh, you didn't buy from the right person. Or government won't come and tell you that you didn't get the necessary approvals, or the land belongs to government. All of those things are the precautions that were put in, or are the safeguards that were put in the contract and in the due diligence process. Even afterwards, there's a stage we call perfection of title, which I think we'll come to subsequently. So that's how important lawyers are. Try not to underestimate the importance of lawyers. Try not to assume that they're not necessary. Otherwise, you pay for it in the long run. I tell people that, I tell clients and friends that at times, clients end up paying for their ignorance in the long run. And when they pay for that ignorance, they pay multiple times what they would have paid for due diligence and getting proper advice.
Okay, so there are two things that you said. I mean, the first is that you could actually transact, have what you think is a contract, and that very thick print or that thick spiral binded thing may be just as good as a receipt of payment.
Absolutely.
And in some other cases, where you made reference to, if you think hiring a lawyer is expensive, would you hire somebody to purposefully build something that will fall on your head? Certainly no. I know when we use the word ignorance, I just want to also paint a picture of it's not that we are saying that these people don't know any better. But indeed, what you do not know, you can fall into as a trap, or you can fall into as probably a missed opportunity to secure that investment. Now, from my experience in real estate, and of course yourself as a lawyer, your own experience, you've seen so many kinds
Absolutely.
of
A lot.
contracts.
On a daily
and
basis.
let's just call it what it is, so many kinds of scams. So can you give us certain instances or certain indications of what you would call a property scam in your experience in property law?
Okay, so there are those that are a bit sophisticated. There are those that are pretty simple. So you have, say, in Lagos, you have, say, 5 million, and you say you want to buy a property. We all know that you can't get high value properties within the Lagos metropolis for that amount. So where do they take you to? They take you to Ekpe. They take you to Ibejuleki. They take you to Badagry, and then they tell Ikorodu, and then places like that. And then they tell you that, I know the family that knows this person that wants to sell it. And they take you around, and then everybody greets you. The agent takes you around, greets everybody, and then tells you, okay, are you interested in buying? You negotiate with the agent. He tells you, okay, I'll prepare your contract. I'll take it to the family. And he says, okay, pay the money into my account, since I'm the person you know, I'm the person you trust. And because you do not get proper legal advice, or you don't even consult a real estate advisor, not necessarily for that part, not necessarily a lawyer, but someone who is experienced in the industry. It could be an architect. It could be a realtor with years of experience dealing with homeowners. But ideally, it is appropriate that you actually consult a lawyer in that kind of situation. Now, what happens is you pay into that person's account, and then he keeps promising you. I've taken the contract to them to sign. They haven't signed. They're asking you to come and pay this extra money. Homeowners, pay for this, pay for that, bring wine, and you pay all that. 3-6 months down the line, your money, 5 million, is gone. The land is not available. Then they come and tell you, oh, the land we wanted to give you, somebody else has taken it. You've still not seen the actual people that are selling the land. You're still dealing with the agents. And then they take you to another person. Real life example, I was at Zone 2 recently. An elderly lady, probably in her late 60s. This scenario that I painted is exactly what happened to her. Now, how did it end? She went to the location. They said they wanted to take her to another plot of land. She went there, and then she saw someone in black hoods, only the face showing, carrying a gun. She told her driver to reverse. Apparently, I don't know for certain, but it seemed like she suspected that they were going to assassinate her and kill her.
Right.
So, till now, both the money and the land, nowhere to be found.
Yes.
That's at another level. Now, for some sophisticated scams, they would actually manufacture fake title documents for you. Now, I've been involved in perfection of titles for some banks, where I took the original C of O, government Lagos State C of O, to allow us to perfect the title. And I got there, and they asked to check it, and they said it was fake. And it's been close to 13-12 years since that happened now.
Okay.
That document has not been returned, to the best of my knowledge.
Okay.
Now, this document I'm talking about passed through the bank's legal department, and they did not see that it was fake.
You're talking about a bank now, not just like an individual.
Not an individual, a bank.
Yes.
Now, those are sophisticated scams.
All right.
So there are several types of these scams where you would not know. And that could have been checked, that issue. The bank could have granted the loan.
Yes.
It was just to perfect their title. And you know banks, they're like typical Nigerians. You give the loan because you think you have the original documents.
Correct.
And then the person takes the money and then goes
Yes,
away. And then
yes.
you want to go and perfect your title maybe
Yes.
6 months down the line.
Yes.
And that's when you find out that it's fake. I tell clients at times that you can actually ask for the original title documents, take it to Alausa, and they will verify it before you make payments.
Right. Because you have a right to actually ask for those things.
Exactly.
But you know, some people will tell you, go and search, go and search. You know, the onus is on the person who wants to buy to verify that these documents are valid.
Exactly.
But what I often see is like as though the person who wants to sell says, or will I be lying? Or will are you saying I'm not the owner? You know, so there's this air of authority that is asserted on the ownership of the property. But that shouldn't hoodwink you or deceive you into thinking that is what you need as a confirmation.
Totally agree.
You must carry out that check yourself.
Every layer of due diligence must be done.
Now,
every single layer.
one other thing you said about how these sophisticated scams work, you know, there was this other thing that happened, I mean, to me, you know, where I was to transact on this particular property and I was given the title documents, went to search, it turned out it was okay. And then it was in the name of a company. And now, what I didn't know at the time was that the directors of the company, there's also another level of due diligence that you must carry out to ascertain, or the people that pose themselves to be directors of the company, are they true directors? Are they the ones registered at Corporate Affairs Commission, CAC? So what then happened was I was dealing with people who like presented this front as we are the ones who own the company, but they didn't actually own the company. So that's another level of scam where somebody is posing as the owner of a company. You go to Alausa, you actually do see that the company has a record of the land at Alausa, but they are not the directors or the people of the company.
And this happens a lot, I'm sorry to say, among developers. A lot of times, the contracts of sale you receive from developers are actually not signed by directors. The deals are not signed by directors.
Yeah.
You probably just get one head of internal audit, head of this, and they say, I can't go and find directors around. And maybe, if you're lucky, the MD, who's the director on the company, signs. And then you get other people sign. That is very unprofessional.
Yes.
Maybe not completely illegal because they're not trying to defraud you. But then there are some, and I'll give you an example. I was involved in a transaction of recent. I'm trying not to disclose too much information, but a company, a regulated business in Nigeria, acquired another company that owned the property. So let's say this is company A is a regulated business.
Yes.
Company B is the company they acquired. Company B actually owns the property.
Yes.
Company B has a separate board of directors.
Yes.
Company A is marketing this property owned by Company B and saying, we can sell it to you.
Right.
And they're saying, we'll issue you a contract of sale. We'll issue you the assignment. And so I asked them, do you have a board resolution authorizing you to sell on behalf of Company A? Yes, you're saying you own Company A. Okay, I'll do a search on that. They said, no. They said, go and do a search. So I went and did a search. I found out that Company A and Company B had no direct relationship. The directors were not related. The shareholders were not related. Now, what was the connection? Company A was a subsidiary of Company C.
Now it gets complicated. It is complicated.
Company C was the one that actually owned Company B.
Okay.
So they're claiming that because their own holding company owns Company B, they have the right to sell Company B's property.
That is owned by Company C.
But it's owned by Company C.
Interesting.
Now, how did I find out all of this?
Yes.
Most lawyers won't even bother. In fact, let's not even say most lawyers now at this point. Most people won't even bother to think, oh, what's the relationship between the actual company that is selling and the owner of the land? Are they the same directors? Are they the same shareholders? Are they connected in any way? There was no board resolution. There was no power of attorney. I went to the office. This is a regulated company on the island.
Yes.
Central Metropolis.
Yes.
When I say regulated, they're talking about companies that are regulated by the CBN, regulated by the SEC.
Yeah.
That was the kind of company that was trying to sell this property. By the time I analyzed everything to my client was like, nah, if they're not willing to give you a board resolution signed by those directors, you have their names, you know who they are, forget it. And this was a transaction worth about 450 million.
You know, so what you're saying in essence, right, is that it's not enough to, on face value, say it is because it is this company, so therefore I can proceed with it. Look at it. You're saying this is a highly regulated company, and a company regulated by a
government
national
agency.
government agency is the word. So the fact that they are a reputable company
Is not
transacting
enough.
profitably in business doesn't give them the credence to sell whatever land. You must still
Exactly.
carry out your due diligence, because even they themselves may not even know the complexities of the property that they think they own. So,
And the funny thing is, they told me that they had sold quite a number of plots, tens of plots, to other people. They mentioned a famous musician, worldwide musician, that if I say, okay, went to India recently,
yes,
you know who the person
all
is.
right.
And I bought properties from them. Didn't do any due diligence.
And so, when do these scams eventually unravel? Because for people who have invested, for example, and this famous musician was, it's sad, because that kind of I'll call it consensus building, where because somebody has done this, then you should also do it, because this particular famous superstar is associated with the property, so your investment is fine and good. That's a wrong notion.
Very wrong notion.
Very notion. So when does it start to unravel? When do people now start to see that things have gone wrong? How further down the line after payments typically do these scams get unraveled?
So I'll give you another example. There's a project I was involved with a couple of years back. Almost similar situation. Company A owned the property. Company B, a sister company, sold the property.
Yeah.
And prepared contract of sales, prepared the deed of assignment to the people that bought it. That's the wrong company, even though they were sister companies.
Yes.
It was now time for them to allow the customers to go and perfect their title. The customer said, oh, I want to take a mortgage on my property.
Yes.
I need to perfect my title.
And all this while, allocation has been done, meaning that the people think that
they had already moved in. They've been living there. They've been living there for years.
They've been living there
for years.
Carry on,
it was not time for them to perfect their title.
Yes.
And apart from the fact that there were issues with the title, they now have to explain that the actual owner of the property is another company. How do we start resolving that? And those guys were, the customers were like, no, this is the company we bought for. This is the company we've always known.
Yes.
Who is this other company you're bringing to us?
Yes. Who are they?
The customers rightfully said it was a scam, that they were trying not to give them their title documents.
Yes.
I'm not sure if that issue has been resolved, but for the better part of about 4 years when I was involved in that transaction, it was back and forth between Alausa.
And that's where you hear of regularizations, because the person who truly owns the right to the property is saying, look, if you are to proceed with this thing, you may almost have to pay the value of that property to sign. And these are people who are already very vested into that property.
They've invested so much, they've built, they renovated, and it's a cost that they don't envisage. And because property ownership is a very sentimental issue for us, a lot of us don't see it as mere investment. We see it as, oh, this is my life. This is my life savings. And I've invested so much in this. And this person I've paid is now trying to get me to pay more. Obviously, there's a scam there. That's what they believe. So they're not willing to concede any other payment.
And rightfully so, because whatever is a scam is, what you have sold to me or what you have made me believe is mine is now being packaged or being addressed as someone else's.
Exactly.
That qualifies as a scam, and you're very right to call it that. Yeah. So, what we're trying to do by all these discussions is trying to tell people the importance, the relevance, the significance of involving a seasoned property, not just a lawyer, but a property lawyer, because, well, there are several aspects to law, right? And not every lawyer is actually qualified to not every lawyer is an expert, let me correct myself, in property law, right? So what are the things that as a property lawyer you would call easy red flags? Because there are certain things that people would see. For those who are willing to invest in real estate, what are the things that as soon as they see it, as soon as they hear of it, they should even think more fervently about involving a property lawyer? Because a property lawyer in a transaction is a given. You should involve one. But there are so many easy things that on citing it, this is a problem. What are those things that you have seen in your experience that you can call a problem?
Okay, so a very easy one is whenever you see title, anything in front of it, and that had in processing or under processing.
Yes, and we see that a lot.
Whenever you see anything under processing
or in view,
I can confidently say that in 90% of the cases,
Yes.
they haven't found anything that has been processed.
Oh my goodness. So you're saying when they say in view or in process,
In view,
nothing is being processed.
nothing is being processed.
So
they intend to process
it's
it.
a gimmick, right?
So what they're doing is they're using that to sell.
Yes.
They tell themselves that they will use the money to process. But then,
Oh,
yeah, they actually honestly tell themselves that they will use the money to process. But as we all know, the cost of things keep going up. They have to disburse funds here, and they think, oh, it's just tight processing. I can always do it in the future. I can always do it later. And fair market value, government's fair market value, there's a rate that government uses to calculate
yes.
what your charges will be for consent fees, registration fees, ground rent, and likes. It's an estimate of the value of the property, whether it's
Yes.
land or apartments or buildings.
Yes.
And it's gazetted. You can always get it at the cabinet office in Alausa.
Okay.
And from time to time, the government reviews these rates.
Yes.
And so let's assume that the developer was supposed to perfect the title or sort out registration at a particular point and did not do that. And the price goes up.
Say, for example, let's put some figures to it. So, for example, for this particular land, the fee was 100 million. And so the person starts to sell in a hope to raise 100 million to settle that transaction with the government to get the registration.
Yeah.
And so along the line, he's unable to do so. And by the time he collects the money,
And spends it.
and then he spends it, and then maybe he's along the line ready to now do the registration, and he goes back, and then the fee has been revised.
And exactly. And the reason the fee is revised is because the government has revalued the land, has been more valuable.
Oh,
so
of course.
Initially, the government valued the land at 100 million. The government now values the land at, say, 300 million. And then the developer has to pull money out of his own pocket. We all know that most developers will not do that.
No, they won't do that.
You know what they will do? They'll go back to the customer and say, there's this new charge you need to pay, developmental levy, and then they give you 3.5 billion and tell you to pay all that.
Yes.
It happens a lot of times.
Yes.
And there are things that you really don't have control over when you're dealing with developers, especially when you're working with developers over large areas of land. These things happen a lot of times, and it's disappointing that it happens, but unfortunately it happens.
Right. Okay, so for me now, I mean, we have cited a lot of examples. I really want people to now know, and just try to explain as simply as you can, the role of a property lawyer in a transaction. Now, what does a property lawyer do from the moment, for example, myself as an intending investor approaches you and I say, Barrister Shogo, I mean, there's this property I've been eyeing, and then I'm really ready to move forward to it. It's a great location, looks like a very good bargain. I'm going to make a lot of money in the long run. What are the things as a seasoned property lawyer that you would do to ensure that you guarantee the safety of my investment so that others can learn why it is important to involve a lawyer?
Okay, so I'll break it down into 3 stages.
All right.
The first stage is called the due diligence stage. By due diligence, we simply mean that we're doing searches, we're verifying that, one, the person that is selling to you has the right to sell, whether he's the owner or he has the authority of the owner. And the authority of the owner could be via a power of attorney or a letter of authority or an agreement authorizing him to sell. A letter of authority would not exactly authorize him to act as an agent for the owner.
Okay.
But a power of attorney, easy. An agreement between the landowner and the agent, easy. So, first of all, does he have the authority to sell? 2, are you actually buying the land that they're offering you? Have you ever heard of the word flying coordinates?
Oh, yes. We actually did treat that, on the previous episode with Sir David Ligide.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes, we explained what that was. But
So,
go ahead, please.
Yeah, so flying coordinates is where the seller takes you to a land here to my right and then tells you this is the survey plan of this land to my right. And you look at it on its face, you're not a surveyor, you can't interpret surveys. It looks like the same shape. It looks like this is the same land this is the same street beside the land, the survey. And then you think, yeah, it's probably okay. But then, because you're not consulting an advisor, whether as a lawyer or a surveyor, you don't realize that the coordinates, there are numbers on that survey plan.
Unique to the property.
To that location,
Yes.
to that property.
Yes.
That confirm that you are on the right land.
Correct.
Now, so what fraudulent people do is they go to a far location, a different location, and then they put the coordinates for that different location on the survey plan that they give to you. If you don't do either apply for what's called the land information certificate, or you do your charting, as it's commonly called, on that land, you end up buying land here, whereas your land is 2,000 kilometers away. That's what happens. Now, so identifying that you're dealing with the right person, identifying that you're buying the appropriate land, identifying that the documents they are giving you are legitimate and proper. There are times when they'll give you documents, registered documents. In this same Lagos, it's a one-of-a-kind incident. In this same Lagos, I've seen, in fact, the property is close to where we are right now. A very large expanse of land.
All right.
I've seen a deed of assignment that did not cite a survey plan and did not have a survey plan attached to it.
No way.
And the deed of assignment was registered by Lagos State government.
Wow.
There are several estates on that land.
Okay. But, I mean, there are certain elements.
It sounds ridiculous, right?
It sounds very ridiculous, but there are certain elements that are present for a deed of assignment to truthfully be a deed of assignment. So anyways, that's by the way.
So maybe one of the red flags you should also watch out is if a government individually is selling land to you, be very careful. In this is remotely related to real estate, but in anti-money laundering, we call some people politically exposed persons.
Right.
And the reason why they're called PEPs, or politically exposed persons, is because they have the ability to influence decisions of government or government agencies to act in certain ways, which may not be according to the proper procedure. And it was something similar to this that happened.
Right.
The person was quite influential.
Yes.
Got the deed to be passed through, registered, signed by the Attorney General.
Wow.
No reference to a survey plan, no survey plan attached to deed of assignment, and it was registered. And people were buying land. Wow. Developers were buying land.
By virtue of maybe the description of the location.
Not just the description of the location, but the person who was selling it. Because they felt, oh, this person is so connected in government.
Yes.
It can't be selling.
No, but I want to discuss particular issue, because without, of course, name calling or, giving off any secretive or private information. For a deed of assignment itself, a deed of assignment would cite the survey, the coordinates and all of that, because it now identifies that location. Because those coordinates, the survey is unique to that property.
Exactly.
So if nothing points to the property itself, what possibly in this case, right, although it's very rare, would now reference that property as what is being covered by the deed of assignment? I'm just curious.
So what they relied on was the preceding title.
Okay.
So the preceding title, we have what we call a root of title. So
yes.
The original title, for instance, what we call, as an example, what we call the C of O is at the top.
Yes.
That's the one issued by government. Someone else buys from the original lottie.
Yes.
Prepares a deed of assignment. That's the second one.
Yes.
Then the next one.
Okay.
Now in this particular case, the third document on that route, on that line,
yes,
was the defective document.
Okay.
Now the one preceding it had a survey plan.
Oh, okay. Understood.
And the person here bought all of the land.
Okay.
So it was that survey plan of the first one that we had to rely on at that point.
Okay. Understood.
But it presented a problem for people who bought.
Yes.
How would they perfect their title?
It becomes a difficulty. Yeah, exactly.
Whether it was going to be a rectified deed or the cost, who will bear the cost of that? Would it be the person that sold? Would it be the developer that did not observe
Obviously,
the error? Would it be
the customer would have to take on that, and that's where people now will have to come together. And by involving a lawyer early on, you avoid these kind of issues where you have to spend money at a later time to regularize or perfect something that should have been done properly by the person selling to you. Because if, for example, you have a group of people who have already built there, and they find out they cannot do anything with that property. For example, if you are to take a loan and they seek collateral, you can't present the documents of that your house, because it's defective to begin with. And so for you to be able to register that, you will have to be compelled, along with others who live in the community, to raise money
and rectify
it, which should have been done by the person selling to you. So one of the things...
And note that in this case, this document, this deed, did not cover a few plots of land. It covered acres of land.
Wow.
So you're basically going to have to raise money, The government won't charge you based on the small plots that
No,
you
no,
bought.
it's on the entire thing.
It's on the entire thing.
Money is to be made. They will make their money.
So it was a big challenge, and
Yes.
we proposed several options,
Yes.
but it all boiled down to who's going to bear the cost. Because we're talking about hundreds of millions
Oh, yes.
at that point.
Yes.
And this could have been avoided if proper due diligence was done. There are times when proper advice is given.
Yes.
I tell clients, I tell friends that the job of people like us is to advise. The job of developers is to execute. So you can decide to take my advice and take the consequences, or not take my advice.
Yes.
I'll give you an example. Of recent, I was involved in a purchase of a property from one of the property is located within the estate of one of the ruling families, landowning families in Lagos.
All right.
And most of these landowning families have what we call restrictions on the title. Certain things you can do, conditions you must fulfill if you're selling to one person or the other.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I looked at the deed of the person that was selling. The person that was selling bought from the landowning family.
Yes.
And I saw that the deed required the seller to obtain the consent of the landowning family.
Okay.
Incidentally,
Okay.
I have a relationship with the landowning family. So I called one of them and said, okay, so how much do you charge for this consent? They told me the amount. I told my client. My client told the seller. The seller said, no, that is not one of the conditions that apply to me. Then we said, how is that possible?
Yes.
Sir, look at clause so of your deed.
Of your own deed. From the
It's
ruling
here.
family.
From the ruling family. It's
Black
here.
and white. Yes.
I said, what do you mean by it doesn't apply to you? You signed a deed that says you're going to comply with this.
Yes.
How can you say it doesn't apply to you?
Yes.
So went ahead and did further checks,
Yes.
which is also part of due diligence.
Yes.
Does this person hold development charges, land use charges on this place? And we
Yes.
found out that there were actually some outstanding payments.
Arrears. Yes.
Arrears. And what would ordinarily be done is that will be used in negotiating. Whatever consent fees will be used in negotiating the purchase price.
That's correct.
To reduce the purchase price.
That's correct.
But for one reason or the other, the client decided, nah, I'm too desperate to buy this property.
And he bought it.
I went ahead to buy it.
My goodness. You see,
So-
so the due diligence part, okay, you've also, you mentioned that because, you're just trying to outline the role that a property lawyer will play. So you've mentioned due diligence. What other thing do you do?
So the next stage after due diligence is preparing your documents. Now, there are two documents essentially that's involved. Three, if you want to have the power of attorney. The first one is the contract of sale. Now, a contract of sale does not mean that the property belongs to you.
Correct. That's another misconception. Please expand on that.
The
some
contract
people have
of
a contract of
sale
sale and they say it's a deed of assignment.
In law is what we call an intention to acquire. And that's why I say that at times you take a document, you think you have ownership. A contract of sale is as good as a receipt of purchase.
My goodness.
It doesn't mean you own the land. It means that, the buyer, the seller has agreed to sell and the buyer has agreed to purchase.
buy.
And these are the conditions for the purchase. You only own the land when you get a deed of assignment and it is registered in your name. I don't want to go into the details of legal interest, equitable interest, when you acquire an equitable right and when you acquire a legal right.
Yes.
But it is very important that you don't just sign a deed of assignment and then you take it home and store it in under your box that has all
in
your
a
carats
safe.
and then keep it for your children. It's very important.
All right.
And I'll tell you why it's important. Assuming the seller sells to another person,
Yes.
issues the person a new deed of assignment,
Yes.
and then the person takes it and goes and registers it immediately. Who do you think owns the land?
The person registered it automatically with no sentiment.
So if you think that because you signed,
Yes.
now people think registering deeds of assignment is expensive. And I'll give you a very, very, very interesting explanation.
Yes.
If you compute the percentage of the fees that you're going to pay at Alausa to perfect your title, it comes to about 4 to 5%.
Of the value of the property.
Not even of the value of the property,
Okay.
because the value of the property is usually higher than what we call the fair market value.
Oh, true.
Fair market value is usually lower than the going rate, the commercial going rate
The commercial rate of the
property.
Yes.
So you're paying 4 to 5% of the fair market value,
Yes.
which is probably lower than what you paid the agents.
Correct.
So why do you have a problem with that? Yes, you have to pay lawyers' fees for helping you perfect title. Negligible too.
Yes.
But why is it going to cost you so much to say you want? Yeah, it takes 1 to 2 years. They're trying to fast track it. Why is that a problem for you? As long as you put your application in, let the lawyer handle it. It shouldn't be a challenge. I don't see a reason why anyone should decide to hold on to title documents and not perfect their title immediately, unless you're a pep
A politically exposed person.
and you don't want people to know you own the property.
Yes.
That
Understood.
happens a lot of times.
Understood. Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Is there another thing?
Yeah, so the third part is the perfection of title, which I mentioned.
Okay.
So the first part, due diligence. Confirm that the person who's selling to you owns the land.
Yes.
Confirm that the land you're buying is the actual land that they're selling to you.
Yes.
Confirm that you're getting the right title document and there are no issues with the title.
Yes.
Then prepare your appropriate documents, contract of sale, especially if you're paying in installment or you're spreading payment.
Yes.
Deed of assignment, that's what transfers rights to you.
Yes.
Then the last part is what we call perfection. Perfection is basically in 3 stages.
Yes.
It's called consent, stamping, and registration. Most people colloquially, by colloquially, I mean commonly refer to that process as governor's consent. Governor's consent is just one stage out of that.
Right.
Governor's consent signed by Attorney General or any commissioner. Then stamping, that's payment of stamp duty. Then the final stage, which is very important, in fact, probably the most important, is the registration. That's where you refer to the land registry. Land registry is different from the lands bureau. Land registry is where your title is registered, and a copy is kept. That's where you do the searches.
Okay.
Very important. And it's important because the law specifies timelines within which your title must be registered from the date on it.
Correct.
Very specific. If it doesn't meet that timeline, that document is as good as a purchase receipt.
Okay.
It only entitles you to recover your money.
Okay.
But there are ways around which lawyers who do perfection sort that out anyway. So 3 stages essentially: due diligence, preparing appropriate documents, and then perfection of title.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So I want you to now, for the benefit of people who are watching, they may be confused by this whole thing, and, they say, how am I supposed to do all of that? But that is the role of a property lawyer, right? So I want us to now go into many people, what I've heard as concerns is they sometimes are just inundated. They are overwhelmed with the kind of decision that they are to take when they see offers that are very, very good, marketed by developers who are reputable or who seem to be reputable. There's this particular issue where, I think we're discussing, via chat or something, and you made reference to somebody who, of course, had invested quite a bit of money and was now in a contract he had signed by himself that did not give him as much room to get his investments out. So what role does a lawyer play when an intending investor is trying to buy a property from a developer in ensuring that their interests are very well protected? So as somebody who wants to buy a property, he should not just rely on the contract that is being pushed to him by developer. What role does a property lawyer, or what role can a property lawyer play to safeguard the interest of someone who also wants to buy from a developer?
So I'll say it this way. So what are the things you should look out for in your contract? If you're acting as an investor, either you're financing a developer's development, or you are actually the one purchasing the property, whether it's an off-plan property or a ready-built property, what are the things you should be looking at? You should be looking at what are the rights being granted to you under that contract. Are those rights restricted in any way? If you purchase the property, can you sell it? If you're selling it, will you have to pay the developer a fee for selling it? Does the developer retain some rights on the property? This usually applies for off-plan properties. Now, there are times when, I'm looking for a discreet way of saying this, as an investor in this case, not as a purchaser of property, you're investing in a project with a view to getting a return on your investment, whether in cash or in kind. And the return on investment seems attractive. Ever since I was young, they used to tell us that if it looks too good to be true,
There probably is.
it is too good to be true. And what that means is that if it looks too good to be true, then there's probably a catch there, a very big catch there. and you must be careful about it. In that kind of situation, if it looks too good to be true, the first thing you should ask yourself is, does this developer have a track record of delivering?
Yeah.
Okay. Don't rely on what your agents tell you. I'm sorry to say, agents want to sell. That's their job. So they will do anything to ensure you purchase. Some of them are more honest and will tell you these are the developers' weaknesses. Now, so it's your own responsibility to then go around with your agent to see all the projects this developer has executed on. One, has the developer delivered? That's one. If the developer has delivered, did the developer deliver to time? Because yes, you have cost overruns, you have time overruns and the likes, but that affects the ability of the developer to complete the project, which also affects the ability of the developer to return your investment. Because the longer it takes for the developer to finish,
The more expensive
the more
it is.
expensive it becomes for him. And if it becomes more expensive for him, it means he has to take funding from somewhere else or sell at a cheaper rate,
Correct.
which means he's losing money. And by the time it's now time to return your investment with your returns, it becomes a problem because you're not the only one he took money from. So it's probably the person who has the most connections or who knows the chairman of EFCC that will be able to get his money out. Two, there are times when, in most cases, those kind of developers, what you find is they give you a contract, bulky documents, maybe 30 to 40 pages, and they tell you it's to protect your interest and everything, properly done and everything. It's those kind of agreements that you don't want to give to your brother who just finished from law school 2 years ago. And I find that happening a lot of times.
I have a brother somewhere who's a lawyer.
I have a younger brother who's a lawyer. He works in this bank, in this department. He's been there for 2-3 years, or even 5 years, and he can review this agreement. But he has no experience in real estate law, commercial lawyer, or even a litigation lawyer. Yes, fine, litigation lawyers do that. But it's very important that you get someone who's very experienced, not only in reviewing those kind of contracts, but in preparing them and understanding what they mean. Because you find out
interpreting them properly, so you understand the jargon or the technical terms
exactly in those contracts.
Yes.
Because what you find out is they look good initially, but 4 or 5 years down the line, when you're trying to recover your investment or get your returns, you find out that, oh, this contract says if I want to get my money, I should have given you notice 6 months ago that I wanted to liquidate my investment.
Yes.
But this is 1 week after the date my money is due. And then the developer comes, oh, you should have given me 6 months notice. This is what your contract says. They're like, oh, I didn't know that. Why didn't you know? I didn't read it. Or I didn't give it to my lawyer. Or it says that if you're going to take your investment back, we'll charge you this tax, we'll charge you that tax. And then your lawyer knows that certain taxes have been removed by government for real estate investments. But you don't know. And he puts it there. And where does that tax go? Back into the pocket of the developer. So a lot of these circumstances occur where they insert clauses in the agreement, and in law or in the court, they tell you that you are bound by the agreement you signed.
Correct, 100%.
You had the opportunity to review it, you had the opportunity to take it to your lawyer. As long as it's not illegal, you signed it, you're bound by it. And that's why you see a lot of situations where people resort to self-help. Eventually.
By that you mean?
By self-help, it means that they personally try to recover their money.
Right.
They start taking soldiers to go and harass developers or to pick him up, or they take beggars and start looking for his house here and there, or they start making threats, or they come up with a frivolous criminal allegation and then they take the seller or the person to the police just in a bid to recover their money, because they find out that if they're going to go to court, it's going to take them so long to recover their money. And there's no guarantee as a court in Nigeria, unfortunately. And it's not just a function of our peculiar court system, but the function of how the law operates. If you're not able to prove your case, you can't win your case.
Correct.
No matter how simple it looks on the surface. If you have a bad lawyer, well, not necessarily a bad lawyer, if you have a lawyer who doesn't know his onions, and he goes to court to prosecute your case, there's no guarantee you get your money back.
Very true.
You go on to the Court of Appeal, you go to the Supreme Court, you spend 10 years. God help you if you're still alive by the time you get judgment. And then your children reap the benefits, and then it could get messy. And in order to avoid all of these situations, what the lawyer will do is to review in detail and then renegotiate the terms of the contract before you sign.
Before you sign. Because once you
So
sign, you are
once you
bound
sign,
by it.
and I'll give you an example. I found out just a few days ago that the client that I mentioned, the client that bought from a landowning family.
Yes.
I don't know if he involved a lawyer when he purchased the property, but I found out that he had signed the deed of assignment and then went back to the seller and said, "Oh, I want to make some changes." After paying, to the best of my knowledge, the seller has refused to negotiate anything.
No, because the terms are probably in his own favor.
In his own
and
favor.
once you have already signed it, I mean, it's as good as
It's
that.
as good as that.
Yes, and you're bound by it.
You are.
No sentiments.
No sentiments. So if it's going to cost you 100 million more because
Yes.
of what you signed,
Yeah. Okay, so, for me, my own inclination would be more towards how we can guide people, in ensuring that they avoid these issues. But for somebody who is already in it, right, and they discover, I have bought into something that is unfavorable for me, what options do those kind of people, I mean, you stated some, which is trying to renegotiate, I mean, and if the developer has a conscience, that, look, I have to do right by this person. But for people who appear to be stonewalled by developers who say, I mean, it is what it is, what options do they now have? It's a difficult topic, but what options do people like that have?
so there's a number of regulatory agencies, mostly government agencies that assist with resolving issues like this. We have the Lagos State Real Estate Regulatory Authority, which is based in Lagos State. I believe other states are actually trying to set up similar agencies.
Yes.
We even have we also have the police. Now, most people assume that the police is the job of the police is restricted to criminal matters, but there are times when they assist in settling civil disputes. The problem most people have is that they are dragged to the police station under the guise of having committed a crime.
Right.
And then they get there and find out that it's a civil issue. However, you can actually take a civil issue to the police and ask them to settle it.
Yes.
There are mediation houses. Lagos State has a Lagos Mediation Court House that actually settles disputes similar to this.
Right.
There are even associations. So, for instance, you have the Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria.
Yes.
You could actually ask them to intervene.
Okay.
Now, as a last resort, depending on the terms of your contract, because that's another issue. Now, if your contract says that any dispute you have goes to arbitration, then you have to take recourse to arbitration. By recourse, I mean your first step has to be to
arbitration.
Go to arbitration. Now, arbitration is where an experienced individual, professional, a lawyer, or someone who is very experienced in that field of real estate, whether as an architect or a surveyor, or could even be a developer, a reputable developer recognized, sits and decides between the two parties how the matter should be resolved. You pay him a fee, you agree on a fee from the get-go, he gives his decision. You can then take that, what we call the arbitral award, to court.
Right.
And then enforce it as a consent judgment.
Okay.
The Lagos Multi-Door Courthouse, that has its own body that handles arbitration, so you can go to them. There are times when they have this dispute resolution week where they resolve cases free of charge. They do it every year in Lagos State, so you can go there. Now, as a last resort, you go to courts. Court system is antagonistic. It means that you don't go there to become friends. You don't go there to laugh. The court encourages amicable settlement.
Yes.
But in most cases, it's because you have a point to prove, either because you want to recover your money or you feel that you've been unfairly treated. That's when you take a case to court. And as lawyers say, you don't go to court and then come back as being friends.
Yes.
You don't go to court and say, oh, you want to invest in this person's project.
Correct.
That's what mediation and arbitration and negotiation and conciliation does.
Okay.
So those are the options you have.
Okay.
Usually for this kind of issues, you start with your lawyer writing a letter to the developer, either requesting for a negotiation of the terms or complaining about certain things that were done that shouldn't have been done or that should have been done and were not done. And then that's how you initiate it, through your lawyer, basically.
Okay. So, for me, having said all of this, it's a very long and arduous process, which no investor will want to go through, because the reason for investing, in the first place is to enjoy the benefits of that investment and obviously the return, depending on whatever it is that actually led the individual to invest in the first place. But having discussed all the possible alternatives in resolving cases that have gone the wrong way, let's now talk about why people do not want to hire a lawyer and then kind of like demystifying what the true cost in engaging a property lawyer is. Because obviously, rather than go through these harrowing experiences of having somebody more or less like sit on your money, and then you know this person is living well, and you are not living well because of the money you've given this person to deliver on what he promised. So, what exactly is the cost of hiring a property lawyer? Because the benefits of spending that money outweigh what you stand to lose. It's just so huge, right? So if you look at it, and you have also talked through the very long and arduous process of recovering investment, which a lot of people would rather not go through, what then is the cost of hiring a lawyer?
Okay, so I understand your question, but I'm going to answer it in two ways.
Oh,
so,
it's okay.
The cost of hiring a lawyer, or rather, should I say the opportunity cost of hiring or not hiring a lawyer,
Yes.
is the probability that you lose all of your investments. Now, what will be a lawyer's fee? In late 2023, the Nigerian Bar Association released a regulation made by virtue of the law that regulates legal practice in Nigeria, the Legal Practitioners Act. Now, that regulation is called the Legal Practitioners Remuneration Order 2023. And it's very specific on how lawyers should charge for each and every one of their services.
All right.
Now, the order provides for minimum charges. Minimum. For real estate transactions, for purchases, if you're buying property or you're applying for a mortgage, from 50 million and below, I think it starts from, is it 10%? It starts from 10%. Then from anything above 50 million to, is it 100 million or 200 million? I'm not sure about it. But anyway, it's specific.
It is graduated.
It's graduated. So now, for instance, for a transaction of say 450 million, by the time you compute the fee, it comes to about 4%.
Okay.
Which is higher than what you pay agents.
Yes.
Which is higher than what you pay agents.
Agents sometimes cut it up to 10%.
Up to 10%
on any transaction.
If a lawyer is charging you professionally and he makes reference to this remuneration order and you request for it, you actually see it.
Yes.
Now, it's very possible for you to actually negotiate a lower fee, but there's a procedure in place required by the order.
Yes.
The order requires that you send an instruction to the lawyer stating how much you want to charge. Now, the lawyer takes that your instruction, prepares an affidavit, submits it to a committee. The committee has a few days to decide on whether they will approve that discount that the lawyer wants to give you or not. If they don't respond within those few days, then the lawyer can go ahead and accept that fee.
All right.
However, if they reject it, then the lawyer has to charge the full fee. Now, that does not mean that you have to wait until they give you a decision either way before the lawyer starts.
Yes.
The regulation allows the lawyer to actually start working for you.
Right.
Immediately, you send that instruction to him, as long as he initiates the process of referring the request for a discount to the relevant remuneration committee. Now, each state has the new NBA executives actually set up a committee for each state.
Yes.
That's a remuneration committee that reviews all of these applications. So lawyers know what to do. They know where to find that and get it done.
Okay, that's great. So having said all of this, I mean, I'm hopeful that people watching, would see that it is really beneficial to engage a lawyer in the first place, just to avoid losing your investments or just being roped into complexities that could drag on for a lot of time, a lot of years. Can you share with us success stories? I know in the course of this discussion, you have given certain instances where you were able to, as a lawyer, intervene and point your clients in the right direction. But for those who are watching, I want you to specify, how as a lawyer you added so much value in either saving your clients a lot of money or just making them avoid a major loophole that they could have fallen into and that could have cost them so much.
Okay, so yeah, success stories. Well, I would say that when you say success story, it doesn't necessarily mean that the client eventually bought.
No, no,
It
no.
just means
What
that
you help them avoid.
exactly.
Yeah,
So,
that is success in itself.
yes. So
Yes.
I've mentioned several instances. Documents are delivered, and they find out that documents were fake, and the client could have expended money. The client wanted to purchase a property, and I insisted that we must take documents to allow us how to verify. And we got there, the document was fake. We were going to purchase a property, a client was going to purchase a property in Ekpe. We got there, and they initially introduced us to a first set of family members.
Yes.
And I interviewed them, found out that they were actually not the authorized representatives of the family. We eventually went to the king's palace, and then the king called the actual authorized representatives, and then we signed. Because it was a money transaction, we took videos, we bought drinks, took pictures with all of them, so that no son comes back in the future. The developer is successfully executing the project now, beautifully.
Right.
So yes, there are times when the transaction doesn't go through, but the client has saved money. And that's the beauty of due diligence. There are times when transaction goes through smoothly, and then the client calls you again and says, "Oh, I want you to help me buy another property."
Yes.
And from buying properties of 50 million, you're going to 450 million, you're going to a billion. That's what makes it enjoyable for me.
All right, that's very good. So, in bringing this to a close, right? I want us to talk about. I mean, for you, a seasoned lawyer, definitely with years of experience, you've seen a lot, and definitely you have your sights set on even bigger accomplishments. But for those who look at this whole process, I mean, those lawyers, right, who wish to practice better, who wish to be able to advise their clients better, who wish to be able to be a lot more seasoned, what would you say are the things, those sticking points, that that must be considered for them to be that? Because as people are getting more and more enlightened, people see that it is just beneficial to always make reference. The first thing is my lawyer. The first thing is my lawyer. So if you want to be seen in that kind of a light, right, by your own clients, what are those things that make for a very good lawyer that people should imbibe? I mean, for those who are in this line of service.
When we're in university and in law school, we're told several times that a lawyer is not the one that knows the law,
Yes.
but someone that knows where to find the law.
All right.
And where I'm taking this to is you need to have a community of like-minded, like-interested persons. And I'm not talking about just having lawyers who are into real estate. I'm talking about having professionals in the real estate industries. We have something similar to that. Our community group, real estate community group. And beyond that, it could be a WhatsApp group where you share knowledge, share experiences. You could actually decide to work with an experienced lawyer. Sit down, do 1 year or 2 years with an experienced lawyer, learn the ropes from him. In law practice, we call that tutelage for young lawyers. Then above all, you can never have enough books. You can never have enough books.
Yeah.
I have at least 5 general real estate books. And I'm talking about real estate law, general principles of real estate practice.
Yes.
Now, talking about the different aspects of real estate, securing capitalization, securing capital, mortgages, secured credits, real estate investment trust. I have multiples of those books. General real estate investments written by non-lawyers. I have several of them. And literally on a monthly basis, I buy books. For lawyers that are practicing in Lagos or even outside Lagos, very good place to get books is at NBA conference. And I do that every year. So I go with a bag of cash, almost literally speaking.
Yes.
And then I walk around all the stores looking for books that are interesting.
Yes.
So constantly reading, developing relationships with like-minded realtors. Excellent way of, and then of course, building relationships. Excellent way. Of course, there are soft skills you also need to learn, communication skills, negotiation skills with clients. There are times when you insist that they're charging a fee, you have to find a way to persuade them, communicate your thoughts to them clearly
Yes. Yes.
without seeming aggressive, without seeming inconsiderate. And then at times you have to be empathetic with them. So those skills are very important too, apart from the hard skills of knowing the law, knowing where to find the law, building relationships and the likes.
All right, thank you so very much, Barrister Shugo Elami. It's been a very packed session. Indeed, I wanted to go on and on, but we have to call it a wrap on this particular episode, demystifying property contracts, the things that you should look out for, and why it is so important to engage a seasoned property lawyer. Thank you so much for being on the show. And
You're
then for
welcome.
our viewers, we would be sharing his details, right? If you want to reach out to Barrister Shogo, of course, to consult with him, we'll be sharing his professional details right under the description on our YouTube channel. And until next time, it's been an amazing time discussing property law, and see you on the next episode. God bless.